Welcome back, class. So it's Mr. J here, using the American Pageant textbook images to talk a little bit about America and World War One. So sometimes people say incorrectly that America was an isolationist country before it got involved in World War One, and that's why America was so late into World War One. It is really, in so many ways, shapes, and forms, not accurate, because the real truth is that. Starting in the end of the Progressive era, where America has this war with Spain and acquires many different territories and new land around the globe, America's been very active in foreign policy, militarily, economically. If you look at this map, you see there are so many examples of American military troops, American base acquisitions, and multiple time periods, multiple examples throughout this time period that predates World War One, where America is very much involved in the global scene. So to talk about America as isolationist simply because President Woodrow Wilson was against entering World War One is, it's not true. So how does America get involved in world? And for example, America sending troops to Haiti and keeping them there for almost 20 years is one of those examples of American imperialism and American gunboat diplomacy that you don't see highlighted too much on the U.S. regions. But in addition to America having different spats with countries in the Caribbean and having different economic and military agreements and disagreements with countries in the Pacific as well, the real key for America entering World War One is obviously the war itself. This war spouts from obviously the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand and many different military alliances that America is not part of. But the real key for America here is, how does this impact America's business and trade internationally? Because as World War One drags on, and this warfare, especially the warfare at sea around Great Britain, becomes very dangerous and negatively impacts America's business. German U-boat warfare, this unrestricted submarine warfare, involves torpedoing vessels of both military and civilian designation. This is a really aggressive measure by Germany that angers the United States, which wants to continue to do business with England and other countries. And so while America is really risking sending these boats to Europe, and especially through this war zone. For example, when the Lusitania cruise liner is sunk by a German warship, it had already been advertised and warned by the German government they are targeting all boats coming into England at this time period. But this unrestricted submarine warfare by Germany really gains a lack of, what do we want to call it? No, it really gains a lot of rancor in America. Germany is often portrayed as this evil militaristic nation, and really many people, such as Teddy Roosevelt, hope to have America enter the war against Germany and their allies, partly in order to gain peace and partly in order to resume trade. So once Woodrow Wilson is reelected president in 1916, he quickly changes his tune because Wilson runs for the ironic slogan, "He kept us out of war." But sure enough, shortly after 1917, the attacks by the unrestricted German U-boat submarine warfare is too much for America, and we declare war on Germany and their allies. And throughout the United States, there is a call to action. There is posters and efforts to raise money for people to buy American citizens to buy bonds in order to support the war effort. There's obviously a big recruitment effort trying to get many different troops to join to the military, trying to avoid a draft by raising morale for the war. There are many opponents of America entering World War One, and this is a point where I actually don't want to talk about Eugene Debs, but I do want to point out that through that there is action. Censorship action around the United States. There's a Supreme Court case during World War One that really establishes that not all speech is protected. You have freedom of speech, but there are limits on what that speech can do. You cannot, for example, shout fire in the middle of a crowded movie theater. You can't do something that would hurt other people. You can't do something. You can't say something that would harm other individuals, and that includes the American military effort. So critics of the war are jailed for their opposition to the war. And this is a classic example of where is the limit on freedom of speech? Well, it is much more limited during wartime. I'll tell you that. And of course, there's also ongoing issues between America and business interests and labor groups throughout the war itself, too. World War I is a trench warfare, largely controlled front. America sends many of its troops to really sways the army, right? Also, American propaganda for women's enlisting in different volunteer organizations. But America continues to utilize its massive naval and military economic systems to build more weapons for the war. This really helps America help shift the tide in the major theaters of the war. America arrives right on time in order to give a great big boost to our allies against the Germany and the Central Powers, and really help end the war. American troops throughout World War I face very traumatic situations, very gruesome and awful, unimaginable types of warfare. And there is, of course, this great big effort to help troops come home, because even though America does not lose many lives in World War I compared to the European nations, it faces traumatic damage for individuals who come back from this gruesome war. And this is one reason why after World War I, President Wilson really makes this effort to establish the League of Nations. Wilson makes this effort to outline an international organization that will prevent future wars. It's somewhat seen as a predecessor to the United Nations. However, even though Wilson has hammered out this peace treaty and helped propose this League of Nations, because Congress needs to approve of treaties, Wilson's plan is actually greatly attacked. Once Wilson is trying to push for the League of Nations, it will not be approved by the Senate, and the League of Nations will fall apart. Big contributor to the lack of stability that leads in part to World War II. So even though America's effort in World War I is short, it's important to know what America's role was in this time period.